Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my July wrap-up. So the first book I read in July was called Reprieve, and it was by James Hen Matson, and it was a horror novel that was set in 1997. So we follow 4 contestants that are in an escape room that is known for being horrifying because it has actors that are in scary costumes and has a lot of booby traps, and basically there has only been one group who actually made it to the end without using the safe word that is reprieve. But before this group that we are following manages to finish, someone enters the room and actually kills one of them. And so we then get 3 POVs from the other people there, and basically we learn how we got to that point. And so I didn't love this book because it was not what I expected. I went into it expecting like a horror thriller, but that's not what it was. It was more of a discussion about capitalism and politics, racism, the obsession of our society with fear, and they were definitely interesting and important discussions. It just wasn't what I was expecting going into that book. So it was definitely like my own fault that I did not enjoy the book because I didn't actually check to see that it was not going to be a horror thriller. Also, I didn't really like any of the characters, but I think that was kind of the point. But yeah, I didn't love this book and I gave it 3 stars. So the next book I read was Winter's Heart by Robert Jordan, and this was book 9 in the Wheel of Time series, which is an epic fantasy series that I have been reading. And as usual, I won't be getting into any details of the plot because it would just spoil the 8 previous books in the series. But if you do wanna hear about my thoughts on the plot, I have a reading vlog that I will link in the description. So basically I will be focusing mainly on the characters at first. So I feel like the characters that I do like were either not in the book or like not actually doing anything. Even my favorite character that, I was happy to follow, he wasn't really doing anything relevant. But on the other hand, I finally started liking the main character. I mean, I liked him in the beginning of the series, like in the first 2 or 3 books, but then I stopped liking him. But now I think I'm back to liking him, and I also liked what he was doing. That was like the interesting part of the book, so that was definitely a plus. But the overall pacing of the book was very, very slow. There wasn't a lot going on that I thought was relevant, and so I didn't love it, but the ending was really, really good, and I am still excited to continue on with the series, but this was actually my least favorite so far, and I gave it 2.5 stars. Okay, so next I read The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon, and this is a horror thriller, and it was also one of my most anticipated releases of 2022. So we follow 2 timelines in this book. One is in the past in 1978 and one in the present, and that's in 2019. And so in the past we see a well-known psychiatrist who lives with her grandchildren, Vi and Eric, and she brings home another young girl who is called Iris. And this young girl, Iris, behaves very strangely. But the other 2 kids, Vi and Eric, are happy to have a new companion regardless because they wanted a new member for their club that they use to hunt monsters. And in the present, Lizzie, who hosts a podcast called Monsters Among Us, I think, she goes to a location where a young girl went missing and where there was a monster sighting. And she knows that monsters are true because her sister is one of them. And so she is determined to track this monster down. And so I really like this book. I especially like the past plotline. And I feel like I always prefer like the past plotline in books that have a past and present story. And especially in this one, I feel like in the past was where we got all the mystery, like the real mystery of the book was in the past. And it also had like a much more creepy vibe, and I really, really liked it. And also the past was like following children, and children are always very creepy to me. So that added another layer of creepy, which I really liked. But I did like the present as well, and the mystery, I guess, that we were following in the present timeline. And I really liked the, I guess, reveal plot twist at the end. And so I had a great time with this book, and I gave it 4 stars. So next I read All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris, and this was a thriller. So in this book we follow Elise, who works as an attorney, and she has a relationship with her boss Michael, who is married to someone else. And one morning her life completely turns up. Oh my god, what is going on? And one morning her life completely turns upside down because she gets to the office and she finds that Michael is dead in his own office. And so she just runs away because she doesn't want to get involved with the police because she is hiding some secrets of her own. And then some shady secrets about the company start coming out as well, and Elise isn't really sure what she should do about it. And then her past and all her secrets and her present start colliding, and she has to protect her brother and at the same time try to figure out and stop a conspiracy. And I also really like this book. I really like the main character Elise. She was definitely not perfect, but I really like to follow her, and I really enjoyed to see how like the secrets of her life came together, like how it was connected to the present storyline. And I also really like to see different theories that were emerging because they actually did make sense, like all of them. So I really liked that, and it was definitely thrilling because I've read some thrillers this year that I was just bored, not thrilled at all, but this one was thrilling. There were some particular scenes that I was like, oh my god, what is going to happen? I was on the edge of my seat, I was nervous, and that's what I want in a thriller. And so I also really enjoyed this one, and I gave this one 4 stars as well. So next I read another thriller, and that one was called The Resting Place, and it was by Camilla Stan, and this was one of my anticipated releases of this year. So we follow Eleanor, and she suffers from prosopagnosia. I have no idea if that's how you say it in English, but it's similar to how you say it in Portuguese, so I'm just gonna go with that. And that means that she basically can't recognize people's faces. And one day she walks in on the murder of her grandmother. And basically she comes face to face with the killer, but she cannot memorize their face and recognize them. And sometime later she learns that her grandmother actually left her a house in the woods, which was the place where her grandfather suddenly died. And so Eleanor, her boyfriend, her aunts, and the lawyer all go up to the house. But they quickly realize that they are not alone. And so we actually also got a past timeline in this book, which I didn't know about when I went into it, but I really enjoyed because, like I said, I always really like the past plot lines, and we learned a lot from that, and it was very interesting, like all of it. But in this case I really enjoyed the present as well because it was very eerie, and it was like, it felt very claustrophobic to be stuck in that house in the middle of nowhere. And it was also very scary when they realized that they weren't alone in that mansion, especially because it could be the killer, because no one knew who the killer was. And once again, I also really liked the reveal of this one and how, like, slowly how the pieces started coming together, again, from the past and the present. And yeah, I also really enjoyed this one, and I also gave this one 4 stars. Okay, so next I read Senlin Ascends, Arm of the Sphinx, and The Haunt King, which are books 1, 2, and 3 in the Books of Babel series, which is a fantasy series. So in this series we follow Thomas Senlin and his wife Maria as they go to the Tower of Babel for their honeymoon, because Senlin is very interested in the tower. But soon after they get there, they actually get separated, and then basically we follow Senlin as he moves through the tower looking for his wife. And so in book 1, I really liked following Senlin. I really liked him as a character and the journey he went through. And I also really liked most of the characters, the other characters that we met. And the world building in this book and in this series in general was really, really good because all of the levels of the tower are like different kingdoms, different countries, and they all felt very, very distinct, and the descriptions were so good. I just felt like I was experiencing a bunch of new worlds. And the second level of the tower was insane, and I loved every second of it. Like the whole like action, world building was just so good and so crazy. And also there was a fight scene at the end of this book that was also incredible, and I absolutely loved it. And the pacing was just a little slow for me overall in the book, especially in part 2, but that's because this whole series is very character driven. So if you like character driven stories, you will probably really like this book. And I have a reading vlog that I will link in the description where I talk more in depth about my thoughts on this book, but I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. So book 2 I didn't love as much as book 1. I had pretty much the same positives to say about it, but the pacing was considerably slower, and I personally tend to enjoy more fast-paced stories. Also, we saw less new places, so there wasn't like as much discovering to be done, but the scene at the end of the book was really, really good, and they got me very excited to continue with the series, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. And I also have a reading vlog that I will link in the description with my more in-depth thoughts about the whole book and the plot itself. Now, the Hot King will be next week's video, so I'm not gonna get into any details. I'm just gonna say that I loved it and I gave it 4.5 stars. Okay, so next I read Wolf Lake by John Verdon, which is the book 5 in the Dave Gurney series, which is a mystery series where we follow a retired detective called Dave Gurney. And in this series, I really loved the first 3 books. The 4th was just okay, but I still really wanted to continue on with the series. So in this book, 4 people who seem to have little in common all report having the same nightmare, and then they are all found dead by apparent suicides. And the police quickly focuses on Richard Hammond, who is a controversial psychologist, and he uses hypnotherapy. And all 4 victims met with him shortly before their deaths. But after being contacted about this case, Gurney starts his own investigation. And I actually really like this one because I feel like it had the same feel of the first 3 books in the series, and I really liked the mystery. I was very intrigued, very interested during the whole book, and I really liked how the pieces of the puzzle, I guess, came together in the end. And I also liked how in this one, Gurney's personal life was affected. Like, it's always affected in a way, but this case was different. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but it was very different because there was actually someone in Gurney's life who was connected to the place where Richard Hammond lives. And so, yeah, I had a great time with this book and I gave it 4 stars. And the 10th and last book I read was called The Starless Crown, and it was by James Rowlands, and this is the first book in the Moonfall series, which is a new fantasy series. And this book was also one of my anticipated releases of 2022. So in this book we follow a gifted student who, after a life-threatening incident, basically foretells the end of the world. And after that she's basically rewarded with a death sentence. So she goes on the run. And on the run she meets 3 other people. And they are a broken soldier, a drunken prince, and an imprisoned thief. And one of them has an artifact that is gonna prove to be very important. And so basically, while they are all being hunted by their enemies, they are gonna have to start trusting each other and working together to try to save the world. and I really liked this book. This book was very fast-paced, like almost 100% of the time, and we know I like fast-paced stories. And I also really liked those 4 characters that we were following, especially the student who foretold the end of the world and the drunken prince. And I also really liked the world building, and at the end of almost every part of the book, and I think there were 17, there were like drawings, I guess, of creatures that were in the story in that specific part, and that was really cool to see, to actually be able to know what those creatures look like. And also one thing that I found very interesting as well was that they spoke English. Obviously the book was written in English, but there were some words that they wrote differently, because at the start of every part there was like something, I guess, taken from either a book or a proverb or something of the world, and it was written in English but like differently, but it sounds the same. And even like their planet, it's called Earth, but URTH. And so I thought that was very funny. And so I thought this was a great start to the series, and I am very excited for the next book to come out. And like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I also gave this one 4 stars. And these were the 10 books I read in July, and this is everything for this week's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!